Hi all, it's Victoria. Today I'm going to talk about a few things, but probably the most important one first is as you're trans, the feeling of changing of identity. Um, as you may know, I'm very tall. I'm 6'2", and at one point I was considering even going into bodybuilding, and I was really cut and muscular and all that stuff. And really considered like an alpha male. And so I had this identity before I transitioned, and obviously lots of that was meant as a cover up for this. And I think that's very common amongst trans people. You know, there's probably two veins. One is the very effeminate one, and the other one is the overcompensating one for trans women. I was in the overcompensating one, and I didn't do it by hunting or fighting. I did it by working out 3-4 hours a day and going out and picking up chicks at the bar. And, you know, being a belching, farting, drinking, smoking douchebag. So, but that's a previous life. Anyways, so there was an identity there, and that identity was with me for a very long time. I had created this persona, in effect, somewhat to protect myself, I think, many ways. To protect myself and so that no one else could possibly see that I was anything but a heterosexual cis white male. And I played that part really well. Nobody knew. Even the person that knew about the cross-dressing, and even me, I didn't even know really that I was anything but those things. I'd kind of pulled the wool over my own eyes, really. And that's, in some ways, really difficult to break down. Those walls that I had built up over 42, 43 years were, you know, really tough. Sorry, my alarm went off. They were really difficult to break down. And when I did, there's still some walls left over because I had to build a set of new walls, right? Maybe not walls. I had to build different things with this new persona. I have to create this other person, or maybe less so creating a persona and more really actually letting the person that was behind that brick wall of that old person, old me, out. But that actually is a difficult thing to do. It sounds like, oh, you break down the walls and the person comes running out. But the reality is that's not how it worked for me. I had to start, the best analogy I can think of is, you know, you're driving a car. For 42 years, I was in the car and I was in the passenger side. And someone else was driving the car, a persona that I created. And then I took that person out of the driver's seat and I threw him in the back seat, and I took over the driving and the steering wheel. But the problem was I didn't know how to drive. And so I started hitting stuff. I was, you know, steering the wheel, and I was starting to try things and see if there was something that I liked, and I tried a few things and it didn't work for me, and then I tried other things and they really did work for me. Some things started coming really naturally, talking with my hands, and the fashion stuff and the makeup and the hair and all that jazz came really quickly. There was other parts that were far more difficult. I still have all these challenges with competitiveness in the gym with the guys in the gym, which is so ridiculous. I want to lift as much as them. No idea why. And there's just other things about me that I find have been much more difficult to break down. My internal, you know, your mind's eye kind of thing. I guess I was still seeing myself even as I was transitioning physically and moving myself towards my authentic self, but at the same time, it was still a learning process. And it didn't happen right away, and to be honest with you, I feel like it is still happening. I'm just over 2 years in, and really, I've only started living out loud fully as myself maybe a year and a half ago, which is crazy. I can't believe that it's only been a year and a half of living as my authentic self. And in that year and a half, we've been in a pandemic. So there really hasn't been the opportunities to go out and kind of put Victoria out into public settings and say, I work from home, there's a pandemic, there's no bars open, there's no nothing. So everything was kind of delayed and kind of protracted because of the pandemic. And really, I feel like in some ways I was fighting myself to not fully live this life. And maybe because I didn't know what to do, maybe because partially for my kids, they still call me daddy when we go out, even if I look like this, which is, yeah. Anyways, it's somewhat of a thing, but at the same time, it's all about them, and let them be the ones who move that ball down the court kind of thing. So it is definitely something that I've been struggling with in terms of really seeing myself as I see myself outwardly. In some ways, it's great because I'm my authentic self, and in other ways, it has been a challenge because there's still these parts of me that I don't know if they're parts of me that I want to keep because they're parts of me, or they're parts of me that are part of the old persona. Like I really like to drive fast, for example, and I bought myself a little sporty car. And is that part of the persona, or is that part of the authentic person? And that's a simple example. Of course, that's part of me. But there's other parts, like the competitiveness with the weightlifting, and the other parts when I get myself sad, and for example, there's another great example. On Saturday, we went out, Soli and I, and we were walking down King West, and I'm 6'2" with these heels on. I'm 6'6", and I definitely stand out. There was a lot of eyes on me on Saturday night as we walked through the club district, and my internal speaking is doing all the negative talk, and it's saying, no, you're a guy, you're this, you're that. They're looking at you because you're gross. All these terrible things. And less so about me being my happy self, which is the usual case. Of course, there was lots of good things about that, but there was also lots of parts of myself that I wish I could change. I wish I wasn't 6'2". I sometimes wish I didn't have giant biceps and wide shoulders and whatnot. And I guess that's a thing that all trans people deal with. Being trans is the greatest gift and the worst thing that could ever happen to you in some ways. But I remember when I realized I was trans, I was like, oh shit, I'm trans, fuck. So, it ended up being much more of a blessing than I ever knew it was going to be, but nonetheless. Anyways, I'll leave you with that thought about the oh shit moment instead of the eureka moment, and I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.